welcome to my Draw With Me video. I'm currently sitting at my desk looking out the window, looking at the very blue sky with the sun shining bright, and it makes me very happy. So I actually tried to record this before, but it was just too big of a challenge. I tried to draw and talk at the same time, and it was then I realized that this topic of being good enough and the question about what is good enough is actually pretty hard, and I am still a little bit worried about finding words and try to explain it properly, but nope. I keep saying probably, but I mean the word properly. What a start. Anyway, let's try doing our best, and I hope you will listen with an open mind, and if you have anything you want to add or say to this topic, I would love to hear it in the comment below. You can do whatever you want to. You can draw with me, you can do laundry. I really don't care. There's nothing right or wrong as long as you are having fun, or feel cozy, or feel the feelings you need to feel right now. Anyway, let's get to the talk about being good enough. So first of all, I want to ask, who decides what is good enough? And how does it make you feel? It seems obvious, and yet many people underestimate the power of this question. By not actively answering the question, anything is possible, and that is pretty scary. I mean, if you don't actively say whether or not or who decides what is good enough, that means a total stranger could decide whether or not you are good enough. And you find that okay if you don't actively go inside your mind and decide who decides what is good enough. That is said, there is things we can influence and things we can't. Trying to believe we can control anything is a huge pressure, and I am definitely one of those person who wants to try to control everything, and I've just found over the years that that is a huge pressure. Believing that you can control every little single thing and other humans is just an enormous pressure, because it's not possible. I'm sorry, but it's not. At least I don't believe it is. But of course we can do our best. And before I go into what is our best, let's just imagine that it is other people who decide what is good enough and how it makes us feel. Because there is situations where this is the case. For example, if we're trying to get a job, then there is certain standards about what they need. But even so, we still try to figure out what is good enough. What does it take for them to think that we are the one to choose? Of course, we know the things they have wrote down, but what we cannot influence is the others at the job interview and what they need, which they don't say. And what happens is that most of us will most likely be worried that we're not good enough, that we are missing something. So that means in our brain we start thinking, oh no, maybe I'm not good enough. Oh no, maybe I'm missing this. Oh no, maybe I'm doing something wrong. And that doesn't only count for a job application. That counts whenever you decide that other people decide whether or not you are good enough. Now, let's say that the lady in the supermarket or just any stranger decides whether or not you are good enough. That means you could walk on the street being nice, but this person has a bad day and decides to call you a bad person. And you accept it, you believe it, because, they decide what good enough is. So you go home, even though you was a nice person, but now you believe you are a bad person. Is that fair? And how does it make you feel overall if everybody else decides who you are, no matter what you do? Think about that. You could be a humble person. But if this other person doesn't like you or doesn't match your personality, they could go around and determine you as a very awful person or a selfish person or whatever they want to say because they just don't like you. And with that, you can go around for the rest of your life telling yourself what an awful person you are just because another person don't like you or just don't care about you. Luckily, there is also good people, of course, which can tell us how lovely we are and how amazing we are and make us feel good. But unless you tell yourself that you decide what is good enough and what is not, your personality can change very much because, just take a normal day. You meet a person that thinks you're awful, then you're an awful person. Then you meet a good friend saying that you are very lovely and kind, then you're suddenly lovely and kind. And then you meet another stranger that just has a bad day telling you that you're something awful, like a lot of words I can't use on YouTube, but you can imagine that for yourself, and then you're suddenly that. Overall, I believe it makes us feel so uncertain about ourselves because we can be anything, no matter what we do, because in the end, it's not us who decides what we are. So why try to do anything? By letting others decide who you are, many people find themselves working their ass off trying to make everybody feel happy about them, because if they don't like you, then you don't like yourself. So you're really dependent on other people's opinions of you. So suddenly you work really hard every single day being afraid another person don't like you, because if they don't like you, then that means you are an awful person. What a pressure is that too? And it is a pressure because I really like the sentence that you can be the sweetest mango, but there will always be people who don't like mango. Of course, this is if you decide that everybody can decide whether or not you are good enough, but some people decide to take a few friends out and let them be the highest voice, if you can say that, whether or not you're good enough. Let's try to zoom in on ourselves. So we have these friends which are nice, telling how lovely and amazing we are, and I think we all need that. I think that is a good thing. But even so, if you still believe that they determine whether or not you are good enough, it still means you cannot stay in any situations approving yourself being good enough unless your friends accept it. You need another person's acceptance to say whether or not you are good enough. And that can trigger a lot of anxiety, because when they're not there, when or how do you then know what is good enough? And just like the job interview, you will start questioning and fearing anything you could do wrong. You start thinking, oh no, what if I am wrong? What if I do this wrong? What if I'm a bad person because I do this? I don't know, because I'm not the person determining whether or not things are good enough or not. Can you see where I'm going? Letting other people decide whether or not we're good enough will lead to an endless amount of questioning and fearing about if we're bad people, if what we do is wrong. So we keep telling ourselves, am I wrong? Am I wrong? I am wrong. I'm wrong. I'm maybe a terrible person. I am maybe a very unkind person. And even though you're saying maybe, it still goes directly into our hearts, like we are telling ourselves that we're possibly a bad person. And imagine a friend saying that we are possibly a bad person. That's not nice either. We want to know for certain whether or not we're good or bad, because otherwise it's like we can't be sure about anything, because it could turn in any point of event. By trying to control whether or not you're good enough by letting other people decide it, you lose all control. At least that is what I believe. But please question what you believe. But that kind of makes sense to what I'm going to talk about now, which is, let us imagine if we decide to determine whether or not things are good enough for us. And how does it make us feel? It can be tricky to truly know what is good enough for ourselves because, life is complicated. So if you find this hard and a bit confusing, it's normal, it's very human. So I want to make an example, and I'm going to use my own situation because that is something I have felt for myself, so I know what difference it makes, at least for me. So I'm currently a student, but that doesn't have to be the point. I'm just in a place where I need a situation to change in the future. I need to find a way to have an income. And I really, really want to have an income where I'm earning money through a job where I am happy. So I have been trying to control everything myself. So I tried to control whether or not I would get a job in the end of next summer. So I tried to do a lot of things, but nobody could tell me whether or not what I was doing good enough. Nobody could tell me do this and then we will for certain hire you. So that just meant no matter what I did, it always ended up with the result, this is maybe not good enough. I am maybe not good enough. I will maybe be rejected. And that's very scary because I tried to control whether or not other people would hire me, even though my brain know that I can control that. So now we're back to this huge pressure of trying to control something you already know you can't. And at the same time, I was telling myself that I was not good enough because I couldn't do this unhuman thing. And I only realized this when I imagined a friend telling me that I should be able to control anything, and if I can't, then they don't like me. And then I thought, wow, that would be a bad friend. So I shouldn't talk like that to myself either. So I sat down and thought, okay, I need to figure out what I believe I should do to be good enough. So no matter whether or not I get a job, I will be happy about myself because I know I have done my best. And many people stop it right there, just saying, well, I just need to do my best, but they don't determine what is the best. So that often also leads to a lot of guilt because we don't know where the line is between what is good enough and when do we need to stop. So unless we keep working all the time and don't sleep, we will start feeling guilt, even though we are told ourselves we just need to do our best. So with that in mind, I knew I had to figure out what is good enough. As most of you know, if you have followed along on my vlogs, I believe in self-care. I believe that is important because I can see how the world is crumbling because self-care isn't the first priority. And now anxiety, depression, and stress is a normal habit, and I don't think that is the right direction. So for me and the personality I have and experience over time, I decided my first priority should be my health. So what does that mean? It means if I'm sick, if I can feel my body telling me it's tired, I often use the word always and never when I have pressured myself too much. It means my first priority should be to relax and heal. Now let's think about what does this decision mean? Well, it means if I have decided that I want to be productive, that I want to do a lot, which I think most of us want to, because the world is telling us that we need to be productive to be something special. But let's say health is the first priority. Self-care is the first priority. We then, to get back to the track of wanting to be productive, we try, but we realize our body is telling us, body, not today, not today. I have worked enough for now. That means I should lay down or do whatever self-care is for me. You can hear more about that in my other Draw With Me video where I'm talking about self-care. I can then do that and feel good about it. That means when I do it, I should not tell myself that I should feel bad about it, because I'm still good enough. I'm still a valuable person, because my first priority is self-care. Now, this is easier said than done, so even when I try to do self-care, sometimes still feel guilty. And that's okay. It is tough, because we have this freaking world telling us that value is productive all the time. So it is a pretty hard habit we need to try to change. But nonetheless, it's a lot easier to take this choice and stop feeling guilty if we decide that if we are truly sick or need self-care, it's okay. No matter whether or not the world or friend or somebody on Instagram tell us that we need to be productive all the time and burn out, you can stand and say no. I choose self-care and I feel good about it. And suddenly there is a lot less uncertainty about whether or not you are good enough. But of course, this is only one step out of many, because then, if we are good enough, or not good enough, because we're always good enough, guys. If we are fresh, if we have healed and are ready to do stuff, what then? Well, for me, I am a student after all, and I think many of us underestimate the power and the time it takes to study. I decide my second priority should be school. So even though I really want this YouTube, I really want to work on my lovely little shop, school is second priority. So that means if I have a lot of homeworks, and that means I don't get to work on my shop or my YouTube, that should be okay. I should feel that I have still done my best, and that is just the situation I need to accept. Because I really want to appreciate the school I have been able to attend. And even though I'm learning about stuff I not always find the most interesting, I value that I'm there. They are learning me stuff, and I have the opportunity to learn about it. So whenever I have things I wanted to do for the shop, but I realize school is just too tough today, I can't do anything but school, I really try to, again, practice this mindset of being okay. I'm still a valuable person even though I don't have time for anything else than school today. I've still done my best when I then have to try to find a job. So then let's take the scenario I have a very hard school and everything I get to do is school, and then suddenly it's over and I need to find a job and I haven't worked on my shop at all. I should not feel guilty, because I know I have determined for myself. I know if I had the chance to do anything else but school, I would have, but it wasn't the case. So I truly did my best and should therefore not feel guilty. Again, easier said than done, so if you feel any guilt still, it's okay. You're human, I'm a human, we all experience it. Okay, let's move on. So let's say I've done school and I still have energy to do stuff. What then? Yeah, it's a long process. There is a lot to think about. That's why I'm saying there is a lot of complexity to this. So this is not something you can sit down and think about for 5 minutes. No, you need to dedicate time and maybe even think about it through a week or a month to for sure seek deep down into who you are and figure out what makes sense for you. And when that is said, this has taken me, I don't know, maybe my whole life, but at least the last 4 years to figure out what makes sense for me. And if you're not used to this, you just need to go out and try, because you cannot find an answer you haven't had yet. I was forced to try to just do a lot of things before I could figure out whether or not it made sense for me or not. Anyway, back to me having energy after school, I then had to decide what I would focus on, and I have so many project guys I want to do. I have actually a lot of passion for life, and that can be such a pain sometimes, because that means I want to do things all the time, but my biggest challenge is to accept that I am a human and the body has limits. So I have many projects I wanted to do, and I have many things on the list I wanted to add to my priority list, but I just knew there's not space for all of them right now. So I need to focus on some specific themes for now. And then while I am finishing them, then I can add new ones. So for me, it has been working on a comic. I've always loved telling stories, and I've tried, but it has really never been the success I wanted to. So I decided, now that I have a little bit over 1 year left in school, I would for the next year focus on my comic. That should be my priority for this year, because I just need to. It has been there on the side getting dust over the time, so now it was time to take that and really focus on that. But of course, I also have my YouTube and I have my shop, and I want to prioritize them too. So what do I do now? Because if I then suddenly decide that I should be able to juggle all of them at once, I then will start to feel the pressure and feel guilty still. Even though I've made the first 2 priorities, I will still feel guilty whenever I'm then not able to juggle all of those things, because I've told myself I apparently should. And again, imagining a friend telling me that I should juggle more than a human can actually handle, that's not good. That's not a good friend saying that. So me saying that to myself is not good either. It's not fair if you believe in fairness. It's not. Why expect something that is just not possible? It will only lead you to failure, and that's why you feel anxious all the time. That's why I was feeling anxious and guilty all the time, because I expected something that is not possible. Are you expecting anything of yourself that, if you think about it, it's actually not human to do? There is way too many people out there feeling guilty about not being good enough, because they have this imagination of what it means to be okay, and it's just not real. It's not real. It's social media showing only the good stuff, so we don't see that all people have bad days. It's very human, it's very normal. You can expect bad days and accept that. So please think about, have you anything you tell yourself you should do but is for real not possible? You are expecting an impossible thing of yourself, and think about, how does that make you feel? Imagine if a friend told you to do that. How would you react? How would that make you feel? While you think about that, I will get back to my priority list. So I knew I wanted to prioritize my comic, but I would still not just totally drop or stop my YouTube channel and my shop, because that means something for me too. So with that knowledge of what was important to me, I decided to dedicate different weeks to different things. So 2 weeks ago, my focus was on the shop update I did. Then last week it was all about my portfolio, and now this week is all about my comic. And then I'm pretty sure next week is going to be all about trying to do some Easter products for my shop. So I can imagine that for now I would like to switch between focusing on my shop and my comic, so that I know that in the end of this year I can feel that I have done good enough if I have switched between focusing on my shop and my comic. And then all the other many projects I will have to accept that this is something I will have to wait to focus on or try to squeeze in if I have a very energetic day where it just makes sense for me. So as you can hear, I did do a lot of thinking and feeling to find the right answers for me, and I'm now in a situation where I can really enjoy the moment right now. I feel like I don't have to worry as much. I have chosen to believe also that in a year when I need to find a job, it will be okay. I have accepted that I cannot control whether or not other people will like me, but I can certainly decide for myself what I think I should do to be good enough. And that makes me feel a lot more safe and okay as a human being. I hope you found the talk with me interesting and it made you think about your life and who you are. I think it's good for us to consider that once in a while. I would love to hear your priorities if you know what they are yet, or if you have never thought about prioritizing what makes sense for you before. I don't believe there's anything right or wrong, so if you don't agree with me, that's okay. And no matter what you work with or what situation you are in, I think you deserve to think that you're valuable. Sadly, we are, most of us, told by the world what are good jobs and what are bad jobs, but I just want everybody to feel valuable, because even the lady in the supermarket is doing me a favor by being there and working there. I can get my groceries because of that. And what I'm trying to say with that is, I don't think the world should determine whether or not you're valuable. I think you should decide for yourself what makes you valuable and what should you avoid. I'm a proud person to say that I prioritize self-care, even though I know not every people agree to that. And that's okay. If that gives them a satisfied life, fine. I have a satisfied life, they have a satisfied life. Do you have a satisfied life? And if not, well, what changes should happen? It's not always the job or the house or the family who needs to change for getting a more satisfied life. Sometimes it's just our mindset who needs to change, or who we need to listen to understand what needs to be a little bit different in our minds to feel more satisfied and enjoy right now, to be proud of who we are right now. And sometimes we do need to change up the job or the family or stuff like that because they are hurting us more than helping us. But the answers to that you can only find in your own mind. No other human being can determine what makes you feel satisfied. At least I don't believe so. Anyway, this ended up as a very long talk. I hope you still had fun. I really enjoyed your company. And I hope we can see each other again soon. What should we do next? What should we talk about next? If you have anything you wish, please let me know in the comment as well. I hope you know I find your opinions very valuable too. As always, I hope you're staying loving and caring, and if you want to, I'm now offering a little happy moment with some dancing if you want to. It's starting now.